Hi guys, hope you're doing incredibly well. Today we're gonna take a look at blending amps, why you would want to do that and how to get tones that work well with each other. So I would say there are two main scenarios where you would want to blend amps. The first one is you already have the tone you're going after, but it just doesn't sit well in the mix. The best example of that would be a Mesa dual rectifier rhythm sound, which is just too scooped, too rattly in the high end and too fat in the low end, and it just doesn't fit the mix at all. You could of course try to EQ it, but it can only get you so far, and you could easily destroy the signature dual rectifier sound. Instead, you might get better results by just blending a second, more mid-forward amp, a Marshall, an Orange or a 5150 for example. Or if you want to try something different, probably my favorite for that would be Laboga Mr. Hector. The plugin version, of course. Now there might be a scenario where you just can't get the tone you're after with just one amp, and that's where it all gets really interesting. In this case, you are no longer just solving a problem in the mix. You are creating a whole new and unique sound, which of course takes a lot of trial and error, but I hope after this video you will know where to start. So here we have the demo track, and before I say anything else, I will just play a bit of it and toggle our blended tone in and out, so you hear exactly what it does. So as you could hopefully hear, the second tone added some aggression, some bite, some character, but also because it's panned a bit inwards, it filled in the stereo image. So we not only get what's in the center, the kick, the bass and the snare, and the sides, hard panned guitars, but also the second pair of guitars which are panned a bit inwards, and this gets us closer to that wall of sound effect we're going after here. So now let's hear our main tone soloed, so we know what we're working with. So it definitely is huge, it has a lot of body and is really doomy and sludgy, but it lacks some bite and character, and that's why we want that other sound blended in. So what we're going to do now is I'm going to bypass the other plugins I have on the chainsaw track and just stick to the Laboga Distortion plugin for now, and I'm going to reset it to factory default and show you how I got that tone. So the first thing I like to do is get in the ballpark of the sound I'm going after in solo, and then when I have the tone roughly where I want it to be, I'm going to listen in the context of the mix and fine tune it. So let's see how it sounds by itself. So it definitely has the mids that we want, but it's way too abrasive in the high end. So I'm going to flip the bright switch to the down position and then fine tune it with the treble knob. So already that's pretty much the sound I was going after. So now what's pretty much left to do is play around with the IR and move on. The left one is a lot more aggressive, the right one has a lot more actually, low mids, which I don't think are gonna really work for what I want to get, which is that aggression and that bite. So I will stick to the left IR and we're going to follow along to the EQ. So now with the EQ opened and the output set about where I want it in the mix, now we're going to listen in context and fine tune the sound. So now to quickly go through what I did there. The first thing was to set the mids to 0 and then pull them way up till I really hear them getting honky and unpleasant, and then finding the sweet spot. The logic behind it is we really want to hear both ends of the spectrum so we can objectively find the sweet spot, and in this case it was perfectly at noon for me. And what I did then was to pull up the EQ 510 from Aurora DSP, which I put basically on every guitar and bass track in every one of my projects. It's just really nice to reshape the sound a bit and make it ready for mixing. And what I do here is I pull up a frequency to hear what I'm listening for and then set it where I want it to be. So what I did there is I cut some of the cloudy upper bass region, a tiny bit of the lower mids, which can also sound a bit muddy. I pulled up the 1K region where I usually want my guitar mids to be, because 2K can be a bit nasally sometimes, so it depends really, but in this case I really like how the 1K sounds. I pulled out a bit of the harsh 4K and reshaped a bit of the really highs. So let's just listen how it sounds now. So I don't know if you have noticed, but in this part, the second guitar jumps out a little bit too much, and we can deal with that with either some basic automation, or we can go fancy with that and add in some compression. And an important thing to do here is I pulled up a unfiltered audio zip compressor and switched it to brightness mode. I assume what this plugin does behind the scenes in this mode is it puts a tilt EQ in the sidechain of the compressor, something we know from API 2500. So now let's just hear what it does. So I hope you've heard how those two transients are really getting controlled by the compressor. Of course, we're setting the fastest attack here to catch them. And I think now the second tone is exactly how I want it to be. So I really hope you found something valuable in this video. If you did, please leave a like and subscribe, I would greatly appreciate it. As for the Laboga Chains of Distortion plugin, it's definitely not going to be your first choice for the next Gent Instagram reel, but you're probably using Neural for those anyway, aren't you? Where it thrives though is nasty and unforgiving death metal tones, which we can use by themselves or blended with a different sound to give it that rough character. What makes it particularly great for the second scenario is that signature Laboga mid-range, which makes both the Chains of Distortion and the Mr. Hector great for this application. Actually, the lead tone you heard in today's demo is also Laboga Chains of Distortion, and it really surprised me how fast I got the tone I wanted from it. It probably won't be your best bet for a beautiful melodic solo, but for anything supposed to sound less pretty, it will do the job perfectly. So I guess that's all for today. Thank you so much for watching and see you in the next one.